As much as we use smartphones in our personal life, business is just hitting stride when it comes to mobile. I'm Tonya Hall for ZDNet and Tech Republic, and joining me is Oas Rege. He is the Chief Strategy Officer at MobileIron. Welcome, Oas.
Well, thanks. Good being here.
What does MobileIron do?
We are a mobile security company. The best way to think about us is we're the solution that you use when you're the CIO of a company. You want to get a whole bunch of mobile devices out to your employees. You want to get them a whole bunch of applications, give them everything they need, and you don't want to lose your data. We're the software that does that.
You know, I know this happens to be a topic that you're very passionate about. It's the evolution of IT in IT organizations. So what is the state of evolution for IT organizations today regarding mobile?
We're still at the beginning. Even though it feels like we've had mobile for a long time, if you think about it, the iPhone only came out in 2007. So that was only 11 years ago. And even though it's radically changed the way that consumers use technology, and none of us, I think, can live without our apps anymore at all, it still hasn't had that transformational impact on the enterprise. It's just starting. So the way I've always thought about it is we're 10 years into a 20-year journey. And in these first 10 years, companies have the technology, they've given mobile email to their employees, they've made them more productive, but it's the next 10 years where we really start to see the transformation, and specifically where people start using mobile to change the workflow of organizations, change the way a manufacturing floor works or a retail organization works. That's still starting. We're still in the early stage, and the real benefits of all of this will happen over the next 10 years.
Why are some companies struggling with mobile in the US?
Mobile is new, and interestingly, the struggle for many organizations is not the technical piece, it's the human piece. When you put a mobile device into someone's hand, and I think we can all relate to this because we all use mobile technology in our personal lives, it changes what you do on a daily basis. It changes the way you consume information, the way you search for information, the actions you take. And so it's not enough just to take a business application that you've been using for 20 years and now put it on a mobile device. That's not taking advantage of mobile, right? That's just cramming something into a really small screen. The key is to relook at the business process that you're running and figure out how to change that to take advantage of mobile. And so I think there is a generation of companies that just gave mobile devices to everyone and said, okay, go for it, transform the business. But that's not the way it works, right? It's not just a technology thing. You've got to really think about how people are doing their job and how you can make it better.
So let's dive in on that. What are the biggest concerns for enterprises that issue mobile devices to their workforce?
Back in the early days, and by early days, I mean the first few years of iPhones and Android devices, the big question people had was security. And that's always security is always going to be a question on people's mind. And there's a lot of evolution in the way the security landscape's changing. But that was number one, which is I got to get my employees mobile email, and I got to make sure I don't lose the data. Right? That was number one. As the mobile systems and operating systems and devices and solutions like ours matured, that became less of an issue. The basics of security became less of an issue. And what people started looking at was, okay, well, what do I give them next? I gave them email. What's next? And one of the things that started happening really fast is that employees and businesses ratcheted up their pace of mobile adoption a lot faster than IT did. So the IT organization was still trying to figure out what should we do next. But the employee in the R&D department had already downloaded 5 different applications and was using them for work. Just no one knew about it.
So you said security isn't as big of an issue, but what are the biggest challenges in keeping mobile devices secure today?
Well, I should probably rephrase it a little bit. It's not that security isn't an issue. It's that the questions that people had in the early days, which is if I put data on this device, is it going to disappear? Those basics aren't there anymore, right? The basic security model is there, but now it's the next stage, which is great, right? I've got an application on the device. I feel like I've secured the data. What happens if you connect to a rogue Wi-Fi network? What happens if you download an application, a business application on your personal device? It's these new use cases which become really important for security. The reason those are a challenge is that most IT organizations are very comfortable with the traditional security model they had, which is I give you a laptop, and I lock it down, and I give you VPN if you're outside our network, and you're in the network, then I've got a firewall protecting you. But literally none of those three things work for mobile, because you don't have a lockdown device. You don't even use VPN necessarily, right? Certainly the user doesn't want to kind of trigger a VPN on their mobile device, and you're never in the network. So you are literally always outside the network on these mobile devices. So that means that you as IT have to rethink the security model that you've gotten so used to for so many years, because none of those pieces apply to this new mobile cloud world.
You've said that the true value of mobile is always business transformation through apps. Explain that.
We all think of apps as those fun little things that we download from Google Play and the App Store. And they could be games, they could help me keep track of what my grocery list is for this week and so forth. But what is an app actually, right? An app is a piece of workflow. It's something that helps me do things better. And the reason it helps me do things better is that it makes data available to me, data that I need, and it lets me take action right away. So that little duo, the dynamic duo of data accessibility and immediate action, right? That dynamic duo is the value of literally every single application that's ever been built that anyone's ever used. So, well, what is business, right? I mean, business is all about data driving action. And that's how I've always thought about mobile. Applications are a way to make that easier for an individual to do. And so when we think of apps, sometimes we think about these kind of little pieces of technology or pieces of functionality. But the way that I believe that enterprises should be looking at it is mapping their data flow. What information do their employees need? What actions do they want their employees to take? Figuring out where the bottlenecks are. Where does that data halt? Where are there problems with it? Where is someone kind of not able to do anything because they don't have the information they need? And at those moments where you've got bottlenecks in the data flow or latency in the data flow, that's the place where you want to have mobile applications really kind of intersect with the user's process, because now suddenly, bam, I can do all that stuff right away, right? That's why the application is always the agent of transformation. It's not because it's kind of this fun little thing, but it's because it gets me data faster and lets me take action faster than I would have otherwise.
How do you balance the often conflicting demands of mobile security and mobile convenience?
That's a question that IT always struggled with, which is if I really do all the things I want to do to secure you, then I'm going to trash your user experience. And unfortunately, historically, a lot of companies made that compromise. They compromised the benefit of security at the detriment of convenience and user experience. And if there's one thing I think that mobile has really proved is that user experience wins. If you provide an incredibly secure business application to your employees that doesn't have a good user experience, you're going to get zero adoption, right? The bar for user experience is much higher on mobile than it was on the desktop. Now, you could argue it shouldn't be that way, but if we just all kind of turn the clock backwards 20 years, the top CRM system in the world was Siebel. Was it a great experience? No, not really. I don't think there's that many people that would say it was necessarily a great experience, but you did it. You had no choice, so that's what you use, right? And so people kind of got used to their companies not giving them the best user experience. In mobile, it doesn't work that way, because you're not competing against those old school enterprise systems when a user compares user experience. The user is comparing the user experience of that mobile business app to that awesome mobile consumer app they downloaded yesterday, right? So the bar for user experience just went up. And I think the big challenge for IT is getting out of that mindset where security means I've got to compromise experience, because that's not the case. In mobile, you don't have to make that compromise anymore. You can break that compromise and achieve both those goals.
Okay, Oas, where is mobile security headed in the next few years? What are the emerging threats, and how do you see companies addressing them?
It's a different threat landscape than what companies had traditionally. Because if we read anything in certainly security publications on an ongoing basis, folks are looking at insider threat. Folks are looking at, back-end kind of honeypots of information being compromised, right? These are really the core things that are driving a lot of the security issues that companies face today, nation states and so forth. With mobile, security is much more about the individual. And it's a little bit of a different mindset, right? So you really have to understand, again, the workflow of the individual. So where do the threats come from? The threats come from a couple of different locations or different vectors, if you will. One is we've all got a lot of apps, right? Okay, that's great. That's what makes your day. That's why if you forget your phone, you go home and get it. But if you forget your wallet or purse, you don't. And the phone's more important. And probably is your wallet. But the key is that all these devices, they've got personal and professional apps on them. So there's an absolutely key part of security is making sure you can separate the data that's personal from the data that's professional. And that's important for business security and business integrity. It's also incredibly important for user privacy. So one of the big new learnings and new mindsets that organizations have to take is actually, I think it's a security thing, but it's phrased differently. It's privacy. Privacy is securing personal data and making sure an organization can't address it. With all the new regulations like GDPR and so forth, that's become even more important. So that's one side, which is now you've got to really think about the other applications on the device, protecting business data and also protecting privacy. The other side of this is what's happening in the network, because the best way to target and steal credentials of individuals is through network threats, right? Because all these devices connect across unsecured networks. And this is where having the right infrastructure and the right, kind of smart security mechanisms to be able to identify when you've got network threats out there in the wild and make sure that people aren't losing their Salesforce credentials is really critical.
Oas Rege, Chief Strategy Officer at MobileIron. If somebody wants to connect with you, maybe they want to click into more of your insights on IT and how to get your organization ready, how can they do that?
Well, you can certainly come to our website, which is www.mobileiron.com. You can also connect with me on Twitter at OREGE. And one of the places where we tend to write a lot about some of the new things that we're seeing in security is on our blog on MobileIron.com. And I hope it's useful to everyone. We try to put stuff there that we hope can help architects and technologists figure out how to make all this mobile stuff work.
Well, thank you, Oas. I appreciate that. And if you guys want to find me, you can right here on ZDNet or Tech Republic, or maybe find me on the internet by going to tonyahall.net. I got links to all my social channels. And thanks for watching.